Drunk Mysteries is a podcast where two men, Ben Bateski and John Nafziger, explore history's most upsetting mysteries while getting extremely drunk off a variety of alcohols. Drunk Mysteries is a podcast, and it wants you to listen to it, while your brave and handsome hosts explore mysteries so disturbing and severe that you may question your reality. Join us at Drunk Mysteries.
Your alternative talk radio contact, The Planet, KGRAradio.com.
With infinite complaisance, people went to and fro of the earth about their little affairs, serene in the assurance of their dominion over this small, spinning fragment of solar driftwood, which by chance or design, man has inherited out of the dark mystery of time and space.
Welcome to another episode of Into the Fray, leering at you from the woodline. Visit the mothership at intothefrayradio.com. There you can find all the episodes, the blog posts, iTF gear, and sign up for the free guest newsletter. The weekly show is, of course, always free and available in all podcatchers, but if you'd like to support the show, and why wouldn't you, go to the website and click Become an Insider, which in turn gets you extra content each and every month. And by the way, if you would be so kind as to leave a rating and review in your listening platform of choice, Cosmic Karma shall be yours. Be part of the discussion by joining the interactive iTF Facebook group, follow on Twitter at ITF_radio, and Instagram. If you have an experience that you'd like to share, email Shannon at intothefrayradio.com. Thanks so much for listening. Now, if you would be so kind, buckle up your safety belts. Put that tray table in the upright position. Liftoff is upon us.
It's even worse when you have three clumsy people sitting around a table, each with a microphone. So
with Dark Windows podcast, it's three of you for each episode?
Yeah, it started out with just myself and my co-host Kevin Heyer.
Mm-hmm.
Then as we started going along, one of my best friends in the entire world, my buddy Seth, he started listening to it, and he listened to the first of our two-parter on Israel Keys, and he's like, okay, I need to come in and help you. I need to come in and sit here with you guys. He's like, because you sound like you're losing your mind. And I'm like, oh, I did. I did about 80 hours of research on this guy. And in that period of time, I slept for about 7 of it, because I was sitting there just trying to get all of this stuff into my brain and onto paper. And it was maddening. And that was one of my favorite episodes to record. But I'm like, if I could have met this guy, I would have just beaten him. You know?
Yeah, like looking back, you're like, what was I thinking? Yeah,
I was like, oh yeah,
so
nobody's done
much
this guy
research
before, and it's like, oh god, that's why.
Yeah, it was a 2-parter, you said?
Yep.
So, I mean, how many episodes in are you? And yeah, before we get to your story, we'll kind of talk about your podcast a little so people can look it up.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah, as we're chatting and getting the story started. So yeah, let's talk about Dark Windows a little bit. How far into this are you?
So as of right now, we are. As of tomorrow, we'll be 19 official episodes in, but we do have a couple episodes that we've released where it's been like bloopers of us just going off the rails and forgetting how to talk and stuff like that. And then we had an episode that we released last week where it was introducing, like, the official introduction of Seth, so that people could get to know a little bit more about him, other than he's just the guy that we pick on because he kind of blends into the wall because of his hair color and all that. But
Literally the wallflower. So I know it's you. Of course, you are Kevin Carleton. There's Kevin Heyer, and then what's Seth's last name?
We call him Broadstone because he's kind of touchy about having his
gotcha.
All of his stuff out there. But
Gotcha.
But yeah, I mean he's always on there, and he's a giant goof, and he's one of the best people I've ever met.
That's awesome. So as far as the research goes, does it usually fall on your shoulders, or you guys try to split it up and delegate, or how does that roll?
It's usually a pretty solid 50-50 split between myself and the other Kevin. Seth is starting to get a little bit more into the research, but he kind of wanted to come on just to bring a little bit of funny to it and break up the madness of just listening to us throw facts out about stuff.
Right. So it's a multi-topic show, I'm assuming, just anything strange and unusual?
Yeah, we cover everything from like hauntings, cryptids, obviously. We're going to start doing some aliens and stuff like that. And my big thing is I'm a huge true crime fan.
Mm-hmm.
I have a stack of books about serial killers and just true crimes and stuff like that, almost as tall as I am. So that's kind of where my passion for it falls in.
That's
and
cool.
I didn't want to do just a true crime show because it's like everybody and their brother's got one. There's like 50,000 of them out there.
Mm-hmm.
So
no, it's good to, and I have gotten emails before like, I don't know why you touch on true crime and, you're supposed to be a paranormal podcast. I'm like, no, I mean, I am. However, it's multi-topic, and by God, I effing love true crime. So, and since it's my show, I'm going to do true crime if I damn well please. So I don't do a lot of it, but when I do, it's like that stupid ad. I don't drink beer often, but when I do. But, it's just, that's also something that I'm fascinated by. I had the opportunity to go out to Fox Hollow Farm, and I would love to go back to locations like that. I didn't really have much happen there as far as the paranormal side of it, which obviously Herb's not around anymore, so it's not so much about the actual crimes, but the leftover stuff. But yeah, I think that's cool. So the multi-topic with Dark Windows, are you guys weekly or are you bi-weekly?
We are weekly.
Go, buddy. Isn't it just so grueling and amazing at the same time?
Especially when you work a 40 to 55 hour a week job on top of it, and then you get home and it's like, okay, I just got done working for 9 hours, time to start working for another 6.
That's yes, exactly. Yeah.
But I love doing it, so I wouldn't do it if I didn't.
Yeah, no, it's not worth it if you don't. Absolutely. No. Like the second it stops being fun, then it's time just to hang up the Yeti, hang up the microphone. The Audio Technica has to go away. So
exactly.
Yeah, I'm definitely in the same boat. So big high five to all you guys. The weekly is a beautiful, grueling task, but we seem to like it so far. So onward we flow. Well, yeah,
absolutely.
Where can everybody find Dark Windows Podcast?
We are on Facebook at Dark Windows Podcast. We're on Twitter and Instagram at Dark Windows Pod. We have an email account if anybody wants to email us. It's darkwindowspod@gmail.com. We're always open for suggestions for show topics or, criticism and stuff like that. We love all of that.
Oh, don't tell them that. Don't encourage them. and heaven forbid you put anything on YouTube, then they're really going to rip your heart out.
Oh God, that's the reason I haven't done it before, is because I'm like, no, YouTube people are mean. I don't want to get into that.
Boy, it's a whole nother world over there. Yeah, it's interesting.
The keyboard warriors are just like, they're brutal.
Complete anonymity. I mean, Facebook's a little better. People get a little feisty and don't really give a shit if their face and real name are out there. Some of them just love to argue, but yeah, YouTube's a whole nother beast.
God, it's awful, isn't it?
It's special. It's a special little place. But I guess they're starting to take down quite a few channels. I guess Vic Cundiff just had Bigfoot Encounters Radio come down, pulled by YouTube, and I guess he said that they didn't give a reason for it, and he's thinking that they might pull Dogman Encounters Radio down now.
Yeah, I saw that on Facebook, and I'm like, what the hell did he do? I mean, I've talked to him a couple of times here and there on Facebook. He seems like a good guy, and his shows aren't like vulgar or anything like that. I mean, I'm like, why would they pull him? It doesn't make any sense.
I don't know. I just saw that today.
Unless,
Somebody
of course, he's
tagged
getting
me.
too close to the truth on something, and they're just like, we're going to shut you down now.
Yeah, I was reading some of the comments, and somebody said, oh, well, it must be because of so-and-so that you just had on your show. I haven't heard that one, so maybe I can try to locate that and see. I don't know if they were talking about, government stuff or who knows. But yeah, some people did bring that up. They're like, well, maybe it has nothing to do with anything, but you're just getting too close to the truth of something. So interesting.
Right.
I don't know.
And the thing is like, I keep hearing about the video that I don't know if he has it or if he's seen it, but I'm like, I want to see that so bad. I want to know what it is.
Yeah, I was just talking about that a couple episodes ago. And it was Vic that I was talking about, of course. When he was on my show, he said, and he said this before, it was nothing new, but he's like, yeah, there's a video that convinced me that these things are real, that Dogman specifically is real, but it's not for public consumption. So it's kind of like one of those things you're like, you can't just, dangle the carrot like that to everybody. But I mean, I get it. It's, whoever has this video, it's theirs, it's their property. And if they don't want to deal with frankly, the bullshit online, I get that.
Yeah.
But if it's that good, though, you're kind of going, well, goodness me. Vic kind of says it's real because he saw that video. It must be a really damn good video.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking is like, that's got to be, I'm wondering if it's like high enough quality that you're seeing like muscle tone moving, maybe a mouth moving, blinking, something like that, where you can actually see that it's not fake. And it's like, I want to see it so bad.
It's got to be something close to, at least, and that's from the 60s, of course, but the Patty film, close to or better than the Patty film, which is astonishing because, of course, that gets argued about every day of the week and it will forever. But yeah, it's got to be something pretty astounding. I wish that would finally come to light, but I don't know.
Absolutely.
That's something we should hold our breath for.
No. And, as much of a kind of like a flim-flam artist as he was, I really don't think that he faked the Patterson film. I really don't, because it looks too real to be fake. I don't think we even have the technology in practical, like, special effects to do that nowadays.
Right. No, I think of a few different folks with actually quite a bit of money behind it. They couldn't even reproduce that.
Yeah, it's insane. I really think it has to be real. I've been watching it since I was a kid, and it just seems like, how could you fake it? Why would you fake it,
Yeah, and if they did, they pulled off the ultimate. Really.
Absolutely.
If you see that, if that's not real, then holy shit, like a huge pat on the back to those guys.
Exactly.
Nobody can even do that now. We can't even recreate that right now.
If that's fake, they deserve an Academy Award for special effects because that was amazing.
Yeah, whoever like the guy was behind the scenes, he should be a millionaire working with the movies now, because his name should have been carried on, and his son's son and the grandson should have all of that knowledge that he used to make that suit, because that was incredible.
Oh yeah, like they would have put like Jim Henson out of business for
absolutely. Right? No, totally.
Crazy.
That was as close as we had back then, was stuff like that. A lot of puppeteering and whatnot, but it was kind of laughable, a little funny. Even in the 80s, we had like Falcor for the Never-Ending Story, and it's. That was a little bit more cartoonish, just all the way around.
But still, the puppeteering with it was insane.
Yeah. Yeah, for the time, it was pretty damn good. All right, so now I've said this actually just recently also, but I purposely did not go hunting down your encounter story because I wanted to be surprised. You said, though, that at one point you did call this into Derek Hayes for the Monsters Among Us podcast. So I'm pretty sure when you start, I'm going to, because I do listen to his show, so I'm sure that I've heard it. I just didn't go out of my way to refresh my memory so I could be somewhat surprised this evening while we chat. So do you know what like season and episode by chance that was, so I can link that for folks, that original call in there to MAU?
I really don't. It was at least 2 seasons ago, though.
Okay.
Because I know his new one just ended. Yeah. Actually, it might have been 2 seasons before. It might have been 3 seasons ago,
3.
but at this point in time, yeah.
Okay, no big deal. I just wanted to ask offhand I'll try to. And maybe Derek knows, but if he's anything like me, he's going to go, I'm not going to remember which. So that was.
Yeah, I'm only 20. We're only 20 episodes into our show, and I'm like, I don't remember what we've covered
Thank you,
so
right?
far.
You're like, don't ask me what episode that was. People, just Google it. I love just saying that. Like, sorry, man. I know it's my show, but I mean, it's so easy to lose track, and yeah. Anyway. Well, I will shut up now, and I will let you take the floor, Kevin.
Okay, so it was December of 2015. It was a surprisingly warm year for the winter. I remember specifically on Christmas Day, which this was a few days before that. But on Christmas Day that year, my wife and I went to my parents. Well, my fiance at the time, but my wife and I went to my parents' house, and I wore shorts. It was like 60 degrees in December in Vermont, which is unheard of. But at the time, I was kind of just hanging out on my couch, playing video games online with a couple of my friends. And actually, my now co-hosts were the guys I was playing with.
Mm-hmm.
But my headset died. And I'm like, well, it's one of those things where it's like it's easier if you can communicate. So I'm like, well, it's only 9 o'clock. It's almost Christmas. So I know Walmart's still going to be open. I'll run in quick. It's a 15-minute drive from my house where I was living at the time. And I'll be back in less than an hour, and we'll keep going. So as I'm headed in, it was in Chittenden, Vermont. If anybody's familiar with that area, it's a very heavily wooded, it's a very small little town. But I was headed into Rutland, which is the next kind of big town in the area. It's the next. It's actually connected to Chittenden, and instead of going all the way down and getting onto the main like state highway, which is Route 7 to go into Rutland, there's a little back way that'll take you out onto Route 3, which brings you up to like the Killington ski resort in Pico and that whole area up there. So this little road connects Chittenden to Route 3. So I take a left onto there, and I'm going along and just minding my own business, listening to the radio as I'm going. And there's kind of not a sharp curve, but like a kind of like a swooping curve in the road to the right. And I head into the turn, and I have my high beams on because it was like 9 o'clock at night, and there's nobody on that road. Mm-hmm. So as I kind of get into the apex of the curve and I'm coming out of it, my headlights hit this thing in the road. It was absolutely massive. It from the tip of its nose to kind of like basically like the ass end of it, like where the tail is, because the tail was dropped down. I did notice that. But to where the base of the tail would have been, it took up the entire eastbound lane of the road. Oh, it was down on all fours. It was very, very big. It was shaped somewhere between like a mix between like a hyena and maybe a wolf and a bear all kind of at the same time, because it had the really, really, really big head. Had a little bit of a hump just past where the neck and shoulders would have come in. So that's what made me think like some like hyena kind of deal. Right. Because they have that hump, and then it kind of just sloped down gradually towards the back legs, kind of like, like how a hyena would. The fur was a kind of like a medium gray color. It was, like an Irish wolfhound, how they have that like thick but also wiry and kind of looks a little greasy hair, like the fur. Yes. So that's exactly what it looked like with the fur. But I mean, I've been around dogs my whole life. I've seen, Irish wolfhounds, and this thing would have dwarfed any of them. The feet looked like dog feet, but longer. So it would have looked almost like if it had like the toe pad at the front. And then if you had taken like where it curves back up to before it goes to the kind of backwards kind of S shape, like up towards the butt. If you had taken like that ankle piece and dropped it down a little bit, it would have almost had a heel at the back. So it had that. And the thing that got me the most, that kind of like, as soon as I noticed this, I was like, this is not normal. The front paws weren't dog paws. They looked like raccoon paws, where, you know, like kind of grabby little like paws like that.
Right.
But they were huge. I mean, if I had been able to freeze time and pull up to this thing, I had a Subaru Baja at the time, which is kind of like, I don't know if you've ever seen one. They're it's kind of like if you took a Subaru Outback but cut the hatch off of it and put like a truck bed in it.
Oh, right. Yeah, I've seen those.
So I had one of those, and if I could have frozen this thing where it was and driven up to it, I could have driven my car up to, I would say, probably 3/4 up the hood before I would have touched the chest of it.
Oh my God.
It was freaking huge. And I am a gun owner, a gun enthusiast, and when I go anywhere, I usually carry a pistol with me unless I'm at work, because you're not allowed to do that, obviously.
Right.
At the time, I had a Glock 23, which was it's a compact pistol. It was a 40 caliber. Had it in my glove box, and for like a split second, I was like, maybe this is a good idea. And as soon as I reached over, I thought, if I were to shoot this thing, it would just piss it off.
Really? And that's a 40 caliber weapon.
Yeah, a 40 caliber is a pretty hefty round for a pistol. And I was like, it would have just pissed it off, I think. The back into the description a little bit, the ears were they were kind of like German Shepherd like, where they were like long, but they come to a point, but not like a Doberman point where it's a really like pinched together, like really sharp point. But they were kind of rounded at the top, and they were kind of they were laid back a little bit, like if you like if your dog's listening for something, like or maybe looking irritated.
Oh God!
Like when like the ears lay back and they get and when the headlights hit its eyes, they glowed kind of like an amber color, and they weren't glowing like internally illuminated glowing, like, you know, some like demon thing.
Right.
So like, and that was another thing that really stuck with me, was the eyes. Cause I was like, I what the hell am I looking at here? And it just kind of like moved its eyes a little bit, kind of, cause it never actually moved its head to look at me, but I could tell it was kind of like side eyeing me, kind of checking me out. And then it went down over the hill into the woods. And at this point in time, I'm sitting in the middle of the road in my car, just thinking, what the hell was that? What did I just see? And I sat there for, I don't know, 40 seconds before I was like, I need to get out of here. And I just kept driving, and I ended up getting into Rutland and doing what I had to do. But I took the long way home because I didn't want to, chance having something happen again.
Yeah. Wow. Maybe I don't quite remember this phone call. Maybe I missed this one because you kept going through it. I'm like, I don't remember this. Holy smokes, Kevin. Okay. So it never got up on just the hinds. It ran off on all fours.
It went down the hill on all fours. The way the back feet looked, it looked like if it wanted to, it would have maybe had the balance to pop up. Because like I said, the feet were longer than because everybody's seen a dog up on 2 feet and they kind of bounce around or whatever. But this looked like the feet might have been long enough to actually support it if it were to have tried to stand up for any period of time.
And this is really a guess, of course, on your part. But
yeah,
if it stood up, how tall do you think it might have been, even with it being hunched over? And it's really a difficult question, but
I'm just thinking from the length of just the body and like the nose, maybe 7.5 to 8 feet.
Oh my gosh.
And that's, I'm giving it a little bit of credit for like having like a little bit of a squat if it were to stand up. Cause I mean, if nothing's going to stand up perfectly straight with the legs shaped like that.
Right.
But yeah, 7.5 to 8 feet.
How fast did it move?
I mean, when it went off, it was already in the road when I got there. But when it went into the woods, it took its time. It just kind of like 2 or 3 steps, just toop, toop, toop down into the woods. It definitely knew that if it wanted to, it would have, you know.
Right. It wasn't worried about
if I had gotten out of the car, I wouldn't be making this call right now. I don't think.
Right.
Yeah. It definitely knew that it was the apex predator at that point in time, I think.
Oh my God. So it's kind of side-eyeing you. So you had a pretty good profile of the thing. Yeah. I mean, was the snout like astonishingly long, like more like a little bit shorter like a wolf's, or was it longer? I
would have, it's going to sound weird, but I almost would have put it into like the length and like thickness of maybe like a grizzly. It would have to have that really kind of not super long, not super short, but it's really wide and like heavy.
Right.
I would have put it into that area there.
That's for all the bone crushing, right, Kevin?
Yeah, that's what I would think, right?
Jeez.
And I mean, I've hunted my entire life. I've seen all kinds of different animals in the woods. I've run into obviously like the white-tailed deer, bobcats, coyotes, which up here our coyotes are a little different. They're not like regular full-blown coyotes. They're almost more of a hybrid, so they're bigger. But this thing was immense. I've never seen anything this big in my life, other than maybe like you go to the zoo and you see like a male lion or a tiger or something like that that's really big. That you're just like, holy crap! I'd never seen one of these in real life, and they're huge. But yeah, it freaked me out. I still think about it, and I have a hard time because I drive around a lot when I get bored, and I just kind of go on rides. And that used to be one of the areas I would go all the time. And now I'll go there, but I go a little bit quicker, and I try to do it during the daylight. And
I mean, what did that mean to you? I mean, it's a monster in the road, right? Mm-hmm. The last thing you were probably expecting to see ever, not just that night.
Absolutely.
What are you thinking? I mean, do you think that you went through a little bit of shock, or I mean, did that change not just your drive, but did it affect your every day? Did you sleep worse? I mean, did you have nightmares?
I didn't sleep at all that night. And I didn't sleep very well for the rest of the week after that. I will occasionally have some nightmares if I'm watching, like if I'm sitting down with, watching something with my wife, and there's any kind of like a wolf or something like that kind of jogs my memory a little bit for it. I'm like, uh-oh.
Right.
I don't want, I don't know. It was one of those things where I'm like, I didn't want to see this, but now that I have, I can't unsee it.
I mean, you're in Vermont, beautiful place, very outdoors, people fish, and they go snowboarding and hunting, as you said. Do you still go outdoors and do stuff like that? Do you go camping?
I will camp, like at campgrounds and stuff like that, where there's, 1,000 other people there or whatever. Right. But I have almost completely stopped hunting, which is, this happened in 2015. I've been out in the woods by myself twice since then. So I've almost completely given up on hunting, because as soon as I get out anywhere by myself and I get out of my vehicle, I instantly get anxiety, like I'm being watched, and I'm like, never mind. I'm going home. It's safe there.
I mean, who could blame you?
No,
I mean, I've been talking about this stuff for a long time, but I'm sitting in a house, especially now. I'm not even near the woods. I'm in the desert now, and it's one thing to talk about it all the time, and you do research, and you can spout off all the supposed, what they look like, and oh yeah, this report from this year. But to actually see one, I can't even imagine. And I've talked about Bigfoot more than Dogman. Dogman, though, terrifies the hell out of me. They always seem angry. They're always just like, their chests are puffed up. I mean, just metaphorically speaking, because they know they're just the most badass thing around. And you have no chance. I suppose if they wanted to come and rip you out of your car and you couldn't drive away, they probably could do that.
Yeah, I mean, I have no doubt in my mind that if I'd stepped out of my car, I was lunch. Yeah. I mean, and I'm not a small guy. I'm 6 foot, 260 pounds. I'm a fairly large guy, but this thing wouldn't have had a problem with me. It would have been quick, just done.
The size of that thing, just you saying it, taking up the whole lane and all that. If people aren't familiar with that particular vehicle, let's go back to the guessing on the size. So it's on all fours with the hunchback and all of that. And this is a really horrible mental picture for you, but if you were standing right next to him while he's on all fours in the road, where do you think possibly he would have come up to?
Just running it back in my head right now, the back would have easily been to, I don't know, maybe 3 inches below my chin.
His back.
Yeah, the top of its back would have been maybe like 3 inches below my chin.
And so that means all right, so I'm trying to, his anatomy, I'm trying to get it in my head the way that it's supposed to be. So that means the head is actually still above the back then? Or did the head hang lower than the hunch on the back?
It had its head dipped down like it was, almost like it was like tracking or sniffing at something. So it had its head dipped down. Mm-hmm. Head up, it would have been probably eye level with me.
Oh my good Lord.
Yeah, on all fours, which is not a fun not a fun thing to imagine.
Did it have claws or anything like that you could notice on these kind of, on the front is like more raccoonish, and on the back it's kind of a little bit more like dog feet? Did you notice anything like that?
I really didn't notice the claws on the back. On the front, they were a little bit longer, like maybe a half an inch than the tip of the fingers almost. I don't know if they're fingers, but that's what I'm going to call them because it's the easiest thing to describe them as. Yeah, I definitely noticed claws in the front. The rears, I didn't notice as much because the rear feet looked more normal than what the front did. So I think that's why the front stuck with me more. Right. Because it's like dogs aren't supposed to have hands. What the hell is this?
Right.
What are you doing with those?
Oh man. Sorry, it's hard. No, I mean, I cannot be easy for you to retell this, so I appreciate you doing it.
No, and like I've told a few people, and I did talk about it on my show, and it's like every time I talk about it gets to the point where I'm just like, it's really weird to tell because I get nervous telling it. Like, I don't know why. I think it's just the memory of it in my head still, where it's like, yep, you saw this. You probably shouldn't have seen this. You were just in the wrong place at the wrong time for the most part.
Right. No, and I hear it in your voice because I don't go on a lot of other shows, but when I do, usually I retell my shadow person story, and I do the same thing you do. I take the pauses, and I'm like swallowing, and I'm like taking a breather, and because it only takes just a little bit to go right back there, because I'm like, I did see that, and it did happen, so it just comes right back to you. So, and yours is just a few years ago, so yeah. I can only imagine. So, okay. I know that it never looked straight on at you, and since you had slightly a profile, I know it was dark, you only had your high beams to work with as far as visual, but did you get a glimpse of any teeth at all?
No, it had its mouth closed. I definitely remember seeing like what would have been the cheeks, like on its almost like the jowls kind of on the side of its mouth. I remember seeing those moving, like when you see a dog like sniffing real heavily through its nose, and the jowls kind of like my dog that I have right now is he's a half beagle, half basset hound, so he does it really well when he's sniffing. Like you can see the cheeks like suck in, almost like they touch the teeth and come back out and like poof out a little bit. I could see the lips on this one doing that, like it was sniffing at something.
God, you really got a good look at it, didn't you?
I was within 50 feet of it when I stopped.
Good Lord, I wasn't expecting this. Was it muscular? Would you call it muscular, or was it more lean?
Yeah. This thing was absolutely like just massively muscularly built.
Like, what else does it need? It's just like the perfect predator, right?
Yeah, right. And I'm sure this thing is probably running like 150 miles an hour through the woods too.
Right?
You know,
it's got more of those white, fast muscle fibers. Like, what else does it need? It needs nothing. It's perfect. It's a perfect creature.
Have you ever seen like what are they? Cane Corsos, like the big. The big like black mastiffs that are just really, really muscular, and they're just like ripped, like shredded up through the arms and stuff.
Yeah.
It was built kind of like that, where you could see, I mean, you could see that the hair was long, but you could see the muscle definition underneath it. And when it moved, it was just smooth as could be, just like it was supposed to be there, walking across the road at that point in time.
Wow.
It didn't move like a bear. Like when you see like black bears or something run, they kind of like hump a little bit sideways and they kind of bounce a little bit. This moved like a dog, just right off the road, like, no big deal.
The tail, you did get to see the tail, which is very interesting, right? So
I got a little bit of it because it was kind of tucked like between the back legs, but the tip of the tail, where it kind of curved back out a little bit, was sticking out behind, like almost between like what I was calling the heels.
Was it a big bushy tail, like a German Shepherd? I
would say maybe halfway between that and maybe like a pit bull, where it's almost like the really like solid kind of tail.
Right. Okay.
But not like bushy like a wolf.
And what about the length of the fur? Did it have less fur down on the legs like some breeds of dogs do, or like on the back it's a little longer? Or, I mean, was it pretty uniformed?
It was pretty uniform for the most part. Down the back, I remember very, very, very clearly, down the back from about the base of the skull to about the rear hips, it was a bit longer, like maybe an inch or two longer than the rest of it. So it almost had like a ridge kind of running down the back, and the hair up there was a darker shade of gray.
All right, Kevin, we're going to take a moment here with a word from our sponsor. Want to know an easy way to save some money? Lower the interest rate on your credit card debt with a credit card consolidation loan from Lightstream. Lightstream rewards consumers who have good credit with a great interest rate and no fees. Get a credit card consolidation loan from 5.89% APR with AutoPay. You can get a loan from $5,000 to $100,000. You choose your funding date as soon as today. My listeners get an additional interest rate discount on top of Lightstream's already low rates. The only way to get this discount is to go to lightstream.com/Fray. lightstream.com/Fray. Subject to credit approval, rate includes 0.50% autopay discount. Terms and conditions apply, and offers are subject to change without notice. Visit lightstream.com for more information. I know that's something that's always frustrated me with, and I don't mean to keep bringing up my thing, but as far as just a witness, standpoint of it, it was always frustrating that I was the only one that saw it. I mean, when you talk about this, or, if I know that most likely your wife knows about this and your friends and maybe some of your family members, is it, I guess I don't know really what I'm getting at as far as a question, but when you think back on it, are you kind of like, I just wish I wouldn't have seen it at all, or at least someone could have been there? I mean, what's kind of your instant flash on that side of it?
I mean, I look at it as being kind of a double-edged sword, where I wish I hadn't seen this, because then I would be able to sleep better at night and not think about it all the time. Mm-hmm. But on the other hand, I'm kind of glad that I saw it, because now I know for myself that there's something else out there other than what we know about, that like scientifically that we can prove that we know about. I know there's something else out there.
So with you seeing this thing for as long as you did and all the detail that you've gotten, what do you think it is?
I don't know. I don't want to be like, oh, it was definitely a werewolf. It was Dogman. And I also don't want to say, oh, it was maybe a wolf that had come down from Canada, because I've seen wolves and they are
Right.
not that big.
I mean, those damn Canadian wolves are crazy, but not that crazy.
Yeah, there's one that was floating around on Facebook for a while where this thing was running alongside this woman's car, and it was
God, I
huge.
saw that.
I was
That
like,
was a cool
holy
video,
shit,
actually.
what is that?
Yeah, that was big.
mean-
but it wasn't shaped like yours and not as big
No,
as yours.
Yeah, it was shaped like a wolf. This thing was
Right.
shaped more like kind of, I don't know, it was a mix of like wolf, hyena, and bear almost. It didn't look like it should have been a real thing, but it moved like it was like totally natural, like it knew what it was doing. It had been doing it for a long time.
Oh, that's a great line. It moved like it shouldn't have been a real thing, but damn it was, because I effing saw it.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, where could we even begin to assume that we talk about hybrids? You use the word hybrid. What in the hell would we even be able to put together to get even close to that? I don't even know.
I have no idea. Unless you were to go back into like the prehistoric genes and like find a bear dog and
Right.
mix it with a dire wolf and all this, and it's just I don't know what it would have been if it was homemade or something, but
Right. To get that big though, that's the real problem.
Yeah,
like
that's the thing.
You can make amalgamations, but I mean the sheer size does not compute with what we have running around that we know we have running around.
No, I mean this thing was like almost the size, like the height of like a cow to me. It's like,
oh my God.
I mean, I'm sure you've seen, I don't know if you've ever been like up close to a cow, but they're fairly tall at the back, and I'm like, that's the first thing that I thought is like, this thing is just as big as a cow.
Is
I
it
don't
really?
know
That's the
what
first thing you
hell
thought.
it is. Yeah, I was like, as soon as I drove away, I'm like,
Massive.
that was easily the height of a cow. I mean, we have more cows in Vermont than we have people, so
Right.
I've seen them definitely.
Right. You're the methane state, is what you're saying. No, I'm just kidding.
Yep, exactly. Oh yeah.
You're like, no, actually, really. How? I don't. I'm just trying to process this. There's people that camp all the time, and like I said, states like Vermont and Ohio, and you've got a lot of the East Coast states are wonderful for outdoorsy stuff, and some people spend months and months and months out there. And do you think? I'm just going to throw this out there because I know that people are going to go, well, you have to ask. Missing people. Do you think maybe these things have taken a kid or two or a person or two, and that they might be the culprit of said atrocities?
I would not be absolutely shocked at all. I've read a couple of the missing 411 books and stuff like that, and I'm like, that very easily could have been something like this, or a Bigfoot or something like that that's just out there, looking for an easy meal, and they just, they grab somebody that, because if they don't want to be seen, I don't think they're going to be seen,
right?
And they just kind of like come out of the woods and snag somebody and take off.
What? Because you know what?
I'm sorry.
I'm sorry. You know what sticks with me is those cases in the 411 where the kids are found like up a, however many thousands of feet up a cliff or a mountain, and they've got
across a river, through
across
a 30-foot wide, thick briar patch. It's like, how did they get here?
Through the woods, and they skip grandma's house, and then they're up on the top of this mountain, basically a mountain. To a 2-year-old, it would be for sure.
Mm-hmm.
And their feet are not scratched up, right? Like their shoes are gone, but they're at the top of this damn mountain. So it's like, well, either they were plucked up and dropped, or something carried them up there. I don't know. It's all just conjecture.
Yeah, that one kind of confused me too, because I'm like, I just, that one didn't make any sense to me. It's like, how are these kids getting there? And they're totally fine when you find them.
Right, like you said, you mentioned the briars and all these sticker bushes, and half of them are, their clothes are missing. They're just in like a diaper, and that's it. Not all of
without
them
a scratch on them.
Yeah, it's even if they were expired, they still didn't have the marks they should have if they somehow made it up this little mini mountain or wherever they were found. It's just wild to me. But when you talk about something the size of a cow that is not only agile and fast and obviously smart, but it can stand up and run bipedally, because we've heard those reports before, and you did mention the anatomy of the back foot. So it seems like that guy, if he wanted to, could have just, off I go, like Prefontaine, just running down the track, I don't know.
I mean, I don't know what it would have been able to do for distance on its hind feet if it could have gotten up there, but I mean, honestly, from just how I remember the feet, I don't see why it wouldn't have been able to just kind of hop up there and do its thing and kind of just boogie along.
No, that's a good point, Kevin. I mean, maybe the back feet are more for, jumping, jumping up into a tree or jumping up a little mini ravine or a cliff.
That makes it even worse though if it's jumping into a tree.
Oh, yeah. I've said that before. There's something really messed up about thinking about even a Bigfoot in a tree, let alone a dog man, but we've heard reports of them up in trees. And I'm like, that is so screwed up. I'm sorry. There's just something really creepy about that to me. I'm like, you're not a damn monkey. Get out of the tree, man. Come on. It's not cool.
It's like, how many times have I driven underneath one of these things,
right. Right.
Or just dropped right through my sunroof and been like, hey, what's up? This is my car now.
Like, hey, now, yeah, just rip this right up. So I just think of Turner and Hooch, right? Like the dog man just gnawing on your headrest and drooling all over it. You're like, dude, come on, let's just get along, okay? I mean, all those years you were out there hunting, right? And I mean, how many times were you maybe in proximity to these? I mean, I'm not assuming there's hundreds of thousands of these things. I don't think that about either of the creatures, Bigfoot or Dogman, but
right.
For them just not to give a crap, it seems like every single time they're seen, I've asked the question, well, did it seem freaked out and run off? Like, no, I just kind of sauntered off, like it just kept doing what it was going to do, even if I hadn't been there. Yeah, they don't give two shits. They really don't.
No. And the worst part for me is that where my regular area that I hunt is within 2 miles of where I saw this thing.
No way.
I swear to God.
All that time, that was your regular area for hunting.
Yeah, because where I saw it, if you were to backtrack back down to the road that I turned on to that road from and follow it back towards my house, and it just there's another turn that you can take to go towards where my house was, or you can keep following that road and it'll take you up to the Mountaintop Inn in Chittenden, which is a very, very nice like hotel resort kind of thing. They do weddings and stuff like that up there, and down behind there is a like state land that you can hunt on. I go all the way out there. It's about a mile out to the end of that road, out behind the mountain on a dirt road. And that's where I hunt. And I'm like, how many times have I been closer to this thing now than I was in my car?
Right. Right. And that was you in your car with a 40 caliber weapon.
Right.
And you still didn't feel safe, right? You're like,
no.
There's no chance.
No, not at all. I was terrified. And as I'm sitting there, I'm just like, I could die right now and nobody would know. They would just find a missing car and a bunch of, mess in here.
It does seem like, especially in a situation like that, and you can assume how you might react, but you don't know until you're in the situation. But, because obviously you did stop the car for a certain amount of time, right? And you're like, what the hell is that in the road, right? You're completely stopped and it stopped. I mean, if it had run at you, what do? Do you drive into it? Do you try to reverse, but then you're going off a cliff or into a tree? And right? I mean, there's so many different scenarios there, but none of them are good.
No, I assume I would have just started crying, thrown it in reverse and backed into somebody's mailbox and hit a tree. And then, from there, what would have happened?
Right. The crying part, yes, I totally agree
absolutely.
with. I would have been crying, screaming like a baby. I mean, what do you do?
I'm not too proud to admit that I would have cried.
I probably would have cried just seeing the thing. I mean, the dogman, that whole thing they are monsters. And so part of you must see, or maybe some of your friends or family that still go out hunting or camping by themselves, or just a couple that goes out to the middle of nowhere because they like to camp. I mean, that's the point of camping sometimes. You don't want to be around anybody. Don't you sometimes just want to grab them and scream, there are monsters out there? Like, don't do this. You have no freaking clue what is in those woods.
Yeah, I do. I really do. I've told people, like, if I, like, when I go hunting from now on, I don't go by I have someone with me. I don't think you should go anywhere out into this kind of environment by yourself, because that's how they make missing people.
Yeah.
Because, where this area is, there's little, most of the trails, like, out, like, where I hunt are very well marked and stuff like that. But if you could go out there and be hiking and fall and break your leg and nobody would find you for days. So it's like, just bring a buddy. That's all I could say is bring somebody with you so that you're not by yourself.
So there were houses right around that particular area.
Yeah, there was a house within eyeshot of where I stopped for it. It was up on the left-hand side on a little hill. If I had guessed, it was kind of cutting through the woods and came down across their lawn almost and into the road.
Is that Dr. Frankenstein's house, maybe? And that's his little creation. I mean, it's so crazy just to think of, them just sitting in their house and watching whatever on Netflix they might be watching and having no idea what's roaming around just outside their house. People have no clue.
And the weird part is, a couple of days after that happened, my wife was going through there, and within, I would say, from how she explained it and what mailboxes that she was seeing, she was probably within 20 to 30 feet of where I saw this thing. She was going to work at, it was like 6:30, 7 o'clock in the morning, somewhere in there. And she saw a bunch of, like, feathers and blood in the road. And that house on the hill had chickens.
Oh.
And she's like, I don't know if somebody hit a chicken or something. And I'm like, what do you mean? She's like, well, there was a couple of feathers and a bunch of blood. I'm like, I've seen chickens get hit by cars. There's feathers everywhere.
Yeah.
So I'm like,
they
maybe
explode.
I'm like, I don't want to say that this thing's, stealing somebody's chickens, but
right.
Maybe.
Easy meals, right?
Exactly. I mean, if we can catch chickens, why wouldn't this thing?
Yeah. Have you come across other sightings of what we're going to go ahead and just call the dogman in that area?
My aunt and uncle who live in almost in the same kind of, maybe like little neighborhood kind of thing as where we were. The funny way that she used to explain it to me when we were living there is, when I started my car because I had an exhaust leak, she could hear it at her house.
Right.
It was like a 2-minute walk. But she was going to work one morning and she saw something running across the field, a field on another road, further into, like, closer to town. And she's like, I don't know what the hell it was, but it was huge. It was it was chasing deer around. I'm like, huh. So when I got home, I called her and I'm like, I'm like, I just saw something, and she's trying to keep me calm as I'm like rambling and stepping on myself trying to talk. And she's like, what did it look like? And I explained to her, and she goes, I've seen that thing in the field before. And, like, she saw it in daylight.
Oh my gosh.
But it was far enough out that she thought, like, she's like, I don't know what it was. There's some big gray thing running around out there.
Big dog or something. Right.
Yeah.
And now it's a daytime. See, they don't care. They do not care.
That was at like 9 o'clock in the morning.
And how far, or I'm sorry, how long prior to your sighting did she see it?
A couple of years, I would say.
Okay.
So maybe like 2010, 2011, somewhere in there.
Dude hangs around. That's his spot. That's terrifying.
And the weird part was, we have, where I was, because we were surrounded by on 3 sides. Our house was surrounded on 3 sides by woods, which kind of strangely is where I came up with the name for our podcast, because walking past a dark window with nothing covering it at night freaks me out, because it's like being in a fishbowl.
Absolutely. Very cool. I like that. That's where I got the name. That's perfect.
And I'm like, I'll run by him, or I'll, whatever. I'm like, I don't like
crawl on the floor. Like,
yeah, right. Just drop down and belly crawl past it.
Do the army crawl. I love it.
It's like, yeah, I'm 30 years old. This is totally normal to just not like going by windows.
Hey, especially now, Kevin, I think that you have the pass. I'm just going to say that. Yeah, you're fine.
But the weird thing is, because, like, I know coyotes kind of, like coyote packs, when they move, they are in an area for a little bit and they kind of move to another area, and it's like a big kind of like circle. After I saw that thing, I didn't hear any coyotes for 4 months after that.
Wow.
So I'm wondering if maybe they know that it's there as well, and they know that it is like the alpha predator for the area, and they're like, well, we'll give you your space, and then once you're done here, we'll loop back around.
So they stopped for 4 months, and then it was noticeable when they started again. And then did you hear them stop again?
Oh, absolutely.
Oh,
I had a little what am I talking about? Bluetooth speaker that I would set out on my front porch, and I would play coyote calls just to see to get responses from them. And a lot of the time, I'd sit out on my porch, and I'd play it and stop it, and you could hear them yipping across the road and up on the side of the house. And then after I saw this thing, I went outside with my wife, and I'm like, okay, I'm not messing around. I brought my hunting rifle out with me because I'm like, I'm not taking a chance, because that's just how I was about it. And I played it and stopped it and got nothing. Played it, stopped it, got nothing. I did that like 5 or 6 times, and then this was probably a week after I had seen it. And I played it again and stopped it, and I heard something growling in the backyard.
Oh,
so I was like, Back in the house we went, doors got locked, lights went off. I was like, I'm not messing around with this thing anymore. I don't want to play anymore.
You just reminded me, that little scene you just painted reminded me of the Paranormal Witness, the Wolf Pack. Did you see that episode?
Absolutely. I hadn't seen it until after I had my encounter, and then I was like, holy crap.
Yeah.
this is crazy. Like, yeah. I didn't, when I thought Dogman before, I didn't think like, oh, this is something that could be real. I thought like werewolves in movies and stuff like that. And then after you see it, it kind of, if that's even what it was, it makes you think like there's something else out there that's definitely real.
It's so it was your aunt, right, that saw it?
Yes.
Chase. Okay, so it's kind of cool because you mentioned that she says she noticed that she would label it as a gray creature, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like mostly gray, so just like yours. So it does make you wonder if maybe because the conjecture with Bigfoot is they're quite kind of gypsy-ish, and they move around, but maybe the Dogman don't do that so much. Maybe they stay in the same area because that was a couple of years before yours. So
absolutely, and I mean there's plenty of food for them there in Chittenden as well. There's deer, there's black bear that they don't get real big. I think the biggest one I've ever seen reported being shot in like the area is like maybe 300 pounds.
Right.
Which is not real big for a bear.
Right.
But we have moose, we have turkeys, we have ducks. Like there's options for food out there, I think. And there's a lot of really heavily wooded areas where people don't go often, that I think that these things could hang out.
I mean, Vermont, at least I'm assuming. I've neper been there. It's just me being here in Nevada and assuming something. I'm assuming that Vermont is one of the less populated states just per square mile, right? I mean, what's the
last census that I saw from like 2012 or whatever it was, we have like 300,000 people here.
Yeah.
I mean, we have less people here than there is in neighborhoods of big cities.
Right. Like Rutland. You mentioned Rutland would be the next biggest city close to where you saw this thing, right? Like you were on your way to that Walmart. Do you know kind of how many people are in Rutland?
High end, maybe 15,000.
Yeah.
That's like that would be. I mean, I think our biggest city, which is Burlington's, got like maybe 30,000 people in it.
So, another conjecture question, and it might be a little bit morbid, but if you were in a standoff with just one of these things, just that one.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you're a hunter, so what caliber weapon would you need to even have a chance at saving your life if it wanted to come after you?
I don't think I would go anything smaller than a .308, and I'd want to have some distance between me and it to make sure I could hit it a couple of times.
Right.
Because,
right.
Like I said, that 40 caliber that I had, I was like, I might as well have thrown it. I'm like thinking to myself, I'm like, why even bother? I might as well just throw the friggin' gun at it.
Throw the whole thing, yeah.
The same effect.
Oh God, I don't mean to laugh. It's just like,
oh no, it's fine, because like some of it, it's like you think about it, you're like, what would I have done if I'd gotten out?
Right.
It's like I would have shot at it. pooped my pants in the back of my car
Right.
and cried and went home.
No, I mean, all of that is completely 100%, I mean, okay to happen. I mean, some people probably would have shit themselves just seeing the thing like you did.
Oh,
So
God. I did have another kind of a weird encounter that same year, about 6 months before that. I didn't know if I could talk about it or
of
not.
course, go for it.
Okay. I was working for a pest control company. They are probably the biggest company in the country for pest control. They're very well known. I'm not going to mention their names, but I was going to a town called Elmore, which is about 85 miles northeast of where I am now. Going up to a camp that a family owns that they go up and they use for the summer, and then after that they go back to I think they lived in either Arizona or New Mexico full time, but they come up here for the summer because apparently it's more fun to deal with humidity, I guess.
Right.
So it's I'm going up the road to this place, and there's a big, like a really, really good size, probably the diameter of a telephone pole, log in the middle of the road up to the camp to keep people from going up to it.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm looking through my notes, and it says remove log, put log back when done. So kind of like a hillbilly speed bump kind of.
Right.
So I slide it out of the way enough so I can get my little truck up there. And I get out, and I'm doing a mosquito service, which basically the mosquito sprayer that I had was like a 4 horsepower. I don't know, maybe about the size of like a push mower
Mm-hmm.
with a 3-gallon water tank on top where you'd mix your water and your chemicals and all that. And the wand looks kind of like a leaf blower. So I get all set up, and you have to crank it over like a lawnmower again. And it's super, super loud. So they're like, make sure you're wearing earplugs or whatever. And I'm like, I just threw my earbuds in and I cranked whatever I was listening to for music up, so I could barely hear it. And as I'm going along, I'm just kind of spraying the trees and the bushes, and I hear this it sounded like a truck coming through the woods. Keep in mind, when I moved the log, there was no fresh tire marks from like ATVs or dirt bikes or trucks or anything like that up the rest of the way to the camp.
Mm-hmm.
But it sounds like somebody's just slamming out through the woods in a truck. So I shut my sprayer off, and I popped my earbuds out, and I'm just sitting there kind of listening, and it stopped. I'm like, that's weird. Huh? Well, maybe somebody's just out, farting around on a 4-wheeler. I didn't realize until after I was done that this is the only road or trail up to the top of the mountain.
Oh. And
it kind of branches off, and there's other little like driveways that go out onto different points of the mountain. So I was thinking, oh, maybe it's just somebody, from at one of the other camps just bombing around, whatever. So I go back, and I get my sprayer started back up again, and I'm going along, and I'm almost done, and I hear it again. So this time I just like, screw it. I just ignored it, and I just, finished up what I was doing. I go back to my truck, I put everything away, and I'm sitting there doing my paperwork up on my phone. And I hear this like little, like a click, click, click sound. I'm like, what the hell is that? I'm like, oh, maybe, I didn't know if it was supposed to rain or something. Maybe we were getting hail. And I look up, and I'm like, no, it's like 93 degrees and bright blue skies, sun's out. I'm like, okay, so that's not it, whatever. Finish up what I'm doing a couple of more times. And at this point in time, I'm like, there's got to be somebody screwing with me at this point. And I'm like, why would you bother the bug guy?
Right. Right.
He's trying to make sure you don't get bit by mosquitoes.
You're the best guy in the entire state of Vermont, honestly.
Oh God. And they are awful out here.
Oh
my God. Like, you can go outside and you can see clouds of them. Like, you walk near them, they can like carry you away. They're terrible.
Oh, I wouldn't guess Vermont would be like that bad for mosquitoes.
Oh yeah. Like, especially like, I live in Pittsford. We have a bunch of like little swamps and stuff like that around like town and the surrounding towns. So we get hammered with mosquitoes. But I get everything done, and we have a little like printer that we keep in our truck. So I get the paperwork all printed out, and I go up and I leave it in the door, whatever. And I go back and start my truck and back around, and I started to head down the driveway, and I heard a louder like click, like a bigger, at this point in time, I'd figured out that they were little tiny rocks being thrown at me because when I got out, there was a pile of them next to my truck. So this other one hits, and I was like, oh, that one was big. And I was like, screw this, I'm gone. And I was hauling ass down the road. And I look up in my rearview mirror, and I see a branch about the diameter of what you would think of for like firewood. Mm-hmm. So it's like a good sized branch. And it was about probably, I didn't get out and measure it. But I'd say, guess probably 5 to 6 feet long. It came out of like straight out of wood, like somebody kind of like underhanded it, and it landed in the road right behind my truck. And I was like,
oh my gosh.
I hauled ass out of there. I didn't stop and put the log back or anything.
Oh my
I get back
goodness.
down. Yeah, it was crazy. I got back down to the bottom of the road, and when you're in Elmore, I can't talk. I don't think there's a cell phone company on the planet that has service there, unless you had like a military grade like GPS satellite phone, and then you might be able to get like a bar out of it.
Yeah.
But I finally got into a town where I had service, and I called my now co-host Kevin, who was mine and my wife's roommate at the time. I'm like, dude, you are not gonna believe what the hell just happened to me. And I'm just like, I'm going and telling him about it, and he's like, that's crazy, And a month later, I went back up to do the service again because it was a monthly service. We did them every month between April and October. Mm-hmm. And this time there was the people that were staying there were up there, and I did their service. And I go up and I knock on the door, and this little old lady comes out. She was probably in her mid 80s, I'd say. Just super, super sweet lady. And I'm like, oh, here you go, ma'am. I got you all set. Hopefully we don't have any more mosquitoes. And as I'm starting to turn, I was like, have you ever seen anything weird out here? She's like, oh, what do you mean by weird? I'm like, have you ever had anything like thrown at your house or anything like that? And she's like, once in a while we get little like sticks and stuff thrown at the windows, but she's like, I just thought, I've been coming up here for years and we don't bother them. I'm like, who do you mean by them?
Oh my gosh.
And her daughter, who was probably in her like 40s or 50s, kind of like grabs her and hurries her back in the house. And she's like, she's like, well, you have a good day, and shut the door in my face. I was like,
goodness.
Okay. So I leave and I get back down into cell phone service, and I call because it was my last stop of the day. So when we get done, you have to call in to let somebody know that you're done and see if any of the other technicians needed help, so you could go help them out. I called my branch manager, and I'm like, hey, I'm all done for the day. Does anybody need anything? And he goes, no. He's like, what did you say to Mrs. So-and-so? I'm like, oh, I was just asking her some questions and stuff. And he goes, that's really interesting because her daughter just called and they don't want us back there. I'm like, oh, okay. Which kind of sucks when you work on, like 40% of your check being commission. So I was like, oh, well, that's good.
Right.
But yeah, I was like, I'm like, I don't know what the hell. Like,
she says, we don't bother them.
Yeah. She's like, yeah, we don't bother them. Just like they were talking about the neighbor across the road that they don't necessarily get along
the damn kids across the street. Oh yeah, we just don't bother them.
Yep.
Totally
exactly.
Normal around these parts. You're like, oh, squeeze me? What?
Yeah, I'm thinking to myself, I'm like, how often do you deal with this if it's become normal?
Right. Well, and they don't even want you up there because you're bringing it up.
Right.
That is
and
so interesting.
I'm like, I didn't think I was doing anything wrong, but she's just like, nah, you don't need to come back. I'm like, okay.
He said that the daughter called though. Right?
Yeah.
And so she was the deciding factor there. We don't talk about the big feetses around here.
No.
Wow.
It's like, oh yeah, no. Those bears that are out there throwing sticks at people,
Yeah. Those paw adept bears that like the flapjacks together.
Yeah.
With the 5 to 6 foot log. Totally normal. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, exactly.
Underhand, like you said.
Yeah, it was just the weirdest thing. It was like somebody just like when you're like around here we have to clean brush out of the yard and stuff in spring, and it was like somebody just grabbed a branch and just kind of tossed it.
Did the old get the hell out? Boop.
Oh yeah, I was like, nope. If I never come back up here again, I'm okay with it.
Oh my goodness.
But unfortunately, that time I didn't see anything because I think it would have been a different kind of sighting where it would have been maybe less threatening. But because there's just something about dogs. When like dogs are angry, they're absolutely terrifying. Of course, I've never seen like an ape or anything like that upset. I'm sure that would probably freak me out a bit too, but
right. Well, yeah, because I mean, you bring up the apes. I mean, when you think of when it gets angry, look what that can do.
Right.
So it makes you wonder about whatever tossed the log, or also whatever the hell that was that you saw on the road that night, what they really could do, or what, heaven forbid, they need to do if they feel like they have to do it for their survival. So
absolutely,
that's the only reason that my brain kind of goes to the missing people, because I don't think that these things are running out of food out there, because I think, like you said, you went through the list of things that are in Vermont for them to snack on, but I don't know. I just think sometimes it's easy pickings. Why not?
Yeah, I mean, especially if you have, I know it's going to sound crazy, but I know people that when they hike, they have earbuds in and they're listening to music and just, I'm like, what the hell is wrong with you? Why?
Especially now, right, Kevin? You're like,
yeah,
you need to be more aware of your surroundings because there's effing monsters in the woods. Thanks.
Right. It's situational awareness, and there's so many people that don't have it now, and it's kind of scary to think like that there's people that are just kind of, going through life like, oh, whatever, nothing's going to happen to me.
Isn't that interesting to think of whatever tossed the log? And, I know where your brain's going with that about what tosses logs and throws the rocks. We've all heard the reports. I wonder what the relationship, and that's probably a very strong word, or what the maybe the tolerance is of said log tosser and then whatever it is you saw on the road, right? Like, that is so fascinating to me as far as how they interact, or do they interact, or do they just know, bro, this is my area, this is yours, stay away, we're going to be cool.
Yeah, I think they I mean, I'm not an expert. Like, I don't know if you've ever listened to Sasquatch Chronicles. Like, Wes is like, oh, I not like I'm studying one in my basement or anything.
Yeah.
But it's like, I think that they have territorial boundaries, kind of, where it's like, this is our space, this is your space. Don't cross the streams, I guess.
Yeah. Right. And why would you? Because one of them knows they're just not going to make it. And we could sit here and that would be a great, like, I mean, they have the movie Rampage coming out from the old game.
Oh, God.
And you're going, not that I want to see it, because I just like to leave the old game where it is.
Exactly.
Being wonderful. But
it was perfect how it was. Don't make a movie out of it.
I mean, if you want to let Godzilla fight Mothra, I mean, it's the same thing. You're kind of going, well, I mean, this one has this strength and this one has this. Who knows who would really win in the battle? But I think you're right. I think they just kind of know, like, well, we don't really need to cross the streams here because we know that it would end very, very badly.
Yeah, it's one of those. It's like, it would probably be bad for both parties, so let's just not bother.
Right. I mean, brute strength on both parts, and this one's got the longer this, or the claws and the teeth and the whatever. So yeah, I think it would be mortal injuries all the way around. So maybe they just have that understanding. Kevin, is there any part of you, any tiny little fiber of you, that wants to see one again?
Yes and no. Yes, just as confirmation, kind of, to maybe think like, okay, well, I've seen it twice now, so I definitely know that I'm not insane.
Right.
But at the same time, it's like, if I never see it again, it won't hurt my feelings. But if I did, I would at least hope that I had somebody with me, or because every time I go down that road now, I take my phone and I hit record on the camera, and I just kind of like jam it between the dash and the windshield, kind of like as my wife referred to it, my redneck, whatever, dash cam.
Right.
And I'm like, if I could see it again that way and have video proof of it, that would be cool. I don't want to see it out in the woods, like one-on-one on foot.
No, I would agree with that. It's terrifying enough just thinking of your situation and feeling like even though you were armed with a decent caliber weapon, again,
Yep.
you were like, this thing is worthless. I may as well get a big old rock and toss at it.
Yeah, I mean, it's not like I was out there with a 22. It was, they're 40 caliber is a good size round. It's not, not the biggest thing in the world, but for a pistol, it'll do the job just as well as anything else. But
yeah,
I don't think there's a chance if I had stepped out of that car. And that's the part that I think about the most is like, what if I had, what would have happened if I had shot her off and gotten out? Just thinking like, oh, maybe I can like, and the most like bass backwards insane version of my brain to go, maybe I could pet this thing.
Right.
But,
well, and maybe some people have done something like that.
Oh, I could imagine. I couldn't imagine being that person that was like, yeah, let's try this.
Yeah, like, oh, I need to get a close-up picture of this thing. Look at this. This is a freak. I got to get...
Yeah, right.
And then...
I'm going to get a selfie.
Right. And then they're just gone.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, who knows? That's all conjecture, but I just think that it would be insane to think that something as big as that. And I don't know, I just lean more towards them eating everything than a Bigfoot, but I tend to think Bigfoots are omnivores too. So I don't know why my brain just, maybe it's the way their anatomy is, their jaws and the way they're built, but I just think it'd be crazy to think they've never ever eaten a person or taken a person. I just think that would be kind of weird to think that it's never happened.
Yeah, because I mean, think about it like this: like, how do people describe Bigfoot? They're like, oh, it looks kind of like maybe like a mix between a human and a gorilla or an orangutan. So we can kind of humanize that.
Right.
When you go to this, you're like, oh, it was a werewolf.
Right.
It's just like,
yeah,
oh, that's like
right.
Instantly scary.
So much more animalistic. Yeah, exactly. And but what's funny about that is the more human-looking Bigfoot terrify me. I don't want to see that. I want to see the more gorilla-looking one. Like, that would just mess with your brain, because a lot more, at least to me. But it would be terrifying to see any of these things. But Dogman, well, the label that we're going to put on that thing, that's on the top of the list, because those things are, I don't know, they're so much more cocky than everything else that we hear about, it seems. And they're just like, yeah, I'm here, I'm badass, and you're not gonna touch me with whatever
exactly
you've got, unless you have an army and automatic weapons and tanks. I don't know.
Yeah,
I mean, it's crazy.
Like a rocket launcher, I would have maybe taken a chance with it, but anything less, I'd have been like, no, I'm not comfortable with this. I'm getting back in car.
But you also have to have perfect aim. I mean, even if you had that, like a Lapua round or something, you still need that perfect aim.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I'm a pretty good shot. I've got a feeling at that point in time, I wouldn't have hit a damn thing. It's just, I would have been shaking like all over the place.
Exactly. For those of us that are not like police officers and don't have massive amounts of adrenaline coursing through our veins, maybe multiple times a night, we're not really going to process that the same in that moment. So yeah. Mm-hmm.
No, like I mean, I do a lot of shooting, not as much as I used to, but one of my friends was actually a former Army Ranger, and he used to do all this stuff where he's like, okay, before you shoot, you're gonna run up here, you're gonna run back, you're gonna run back up there, run back here, grab your rifle, and then you're gonna shoot. And I'm like, oh, why? It's like, oh, just so you can see how much different it is to fire with like a higher heart rate and being out of breath. And I'm like, I don't want to do that. I'm gonna hit anything.
Well, and isn't that funny? That's what happens when you take your CCW, your concealed weapons. I mean, it's all just like sitting in a classroom, and then the next day you go to a shooting range. But if you have someone in your house and you think that you or your children or your loved ones are in danger, it's a whole nother situation. It's completely different.
Thankfully I've never had that situation, but I can't imagine that it's. I can't imagine it's like what they make it out in the movies, where just like you jump over the couch and you shoot at some guy for 10 minutes. And
yeah,
You know,
and you're
it's
just
got to
totally
be just
controlled. But that's why you get the higher caliber weapon, right? Because there's just, or you get the Taurus Judge with the PDX one rounds
awesome.
that just spray. Like it's just it. I call those like the remodeler, right? They just take out freaking walls, man. You're like, I don't need aim. Who needs aim?
Yeah, I mean, if you think about it, it's a handheld shotgun, and they're badass.
It is. Those are fun to shoot, by the way. That's my next weapon. I think that's the ultimate home defense. If you don't want like a full shotgun, like it's the governor or the Taurus Judge though has my heart. I think that's my next one. Those things are amazing.
And when you asked about what caliber I would suggest for this thing, I'm like, I looked at my kit and I was like, well, I've got a 1941 or 1942 old like Russian Mosin Nagant, which is it's a Soviet 308, and I'm like, I would have taken that, except it's 6 feet long.
Right, but still, that would be that's a nice weapon. You got to hang on to that one.
And it's like, well, I don't think I have the bayonet anymore, but I'm like, if I needed it, I would have tried that too. But like,
hey, the more the better. I mean, any closing words for people? Because I kind of feel like you went through this whole thing and it's so life-changing because all of a sudden the monster is real. Like they're really, they are really out there, guys. They're really out there. So, I mean, any closing words on this whole thing?
I mean, the only thing I would tell people is if you're going in the woods for anything, please don't go alone. Bring a friend. Tell people where you're going before you go there. Just don't go alone.
Yeah, I want to thank you for coming on. I know it's not easy to retell this stuff. Hopefully, it gets easier every time you do. I don't know how many more times you're going to tell this. I didn't think I'd be telling it that many times. And then all of a sudden I'm, on a podcast, and then it just kind of happens that you're on other shows and you tell it a lot. So it does get easier. But I thank you so much. And one more time, please just tell people where to find you guys' podcast.
We are Dark Windows Podcast. You can find us on iTunes, Google Play, Stitcher, Spotify, pretty much anywhere you can download podcasts. You can find us there. You can find us on Twitter and on Instagram, both at Dark Windows Pod. And on Facebook, we're under Dark Windows Podcast. We release once a week. We cover all kinds of different crazy shit. Our episode that's coming out tomorrow, we're actually covering the old Melbourne jail in Australia. That one is really cool because I got into the true crime half of it, where I get to find out stuff about guys like Ned Kelly, who was essentially like Australian Jesse James. He was a bad dude, and a guy who is in a lot of people's like top 5 list for possibly being Jack the Ripper. Another guy that was in there.
Wow.
Yeah. I was like, oh shit, I stumbled into a rabbit hole and I love this.
You're like, more 80 hours more of research. Here I come.
Oh, absolutely. But I'm like, I was just like smile on my face the whole time. I'm like, oh, this guy might be Jack the Ripper. I love this. And Ned Kelly's awesome. So yeah, we're going to have fun with this.
Jack the Ripper is one of those that's like, there's maybe 10 different guys that it could be. That's what's so amazing about that.
Exactly. And one of my co-hosts, Kevin, he is staunchly against my thoughts on it. He is in the camp of it being H.H. Holmes, which, that's I've seen the evidence for it. And it's like, I wouldn't put it past him because he was a lunatic. But I'm like, I think he was busy enough in Chicago that I don't think he went to London. But who knows? Well, I don't think we'll ever find out.
No. And I don't know what that would take exactly, especially after all this time is gone. But still pretty cool to think about. Yeah,
it's not like what's his name, the original Night Stalker that they just caught of the ancestry thing, and they can't do anything because they obtained his DNA in a way that they can't use it as evidence.
Unbelievable.
I'm like, are you serious?
I think we need to rewrite a few things. Maybe?
Absolutely. It's like, you've got his DNA, you've got all these like horns of the voicemails that he left. It's like, what the hell else do you need?
Can we rewrite? Can we make an exception? Just this one time, please.
Exactly. Just this once. Just this once. Never again. Just this one time. We get rid of this scumbag. But,
unbelievable. Did you watch The Staircase on Netflix?
I haven't. I've been working my way through Evil Genius first.
Okay.
But that's my next one.
All right. Well, let me know what you think of the staircase.
Absolutely.
Because it was kind of like Making a Murderer, where I was like flip-flopping back and forth. Like during each episode. It wasn't like this episode, it was him. And then it's not. No, it's like during the episodes, you're going, I have no freaking clue what's going on here.
Oh my God.
So yeah, let me know when you watch that. I would be interested to see what you think.
Absolutely.
Well, Kevin, again, thank you so much for recounting that. Honestly, I don't know if I just missed that episode or I truly do not remember, but I didn't remember it. So, which I like, because I like being kind of surprised, and then I can come up with my questions like that. But holy smokes, man!
Yeah, that it was something. Like I still think about it every day, and yeah, it's gotten to the point where it's gotten easier to tell the story, but.
Yeah.
It still kind of sucks telling it because it's like, oh, now I'm going to think about this tonight when I try to go to sleep.
Right. You're like, thanks, Shannon. Appreciate it.
Oh, no worries. Then, thank you for having me on. I love your show. And, I was just figured, I was like, well, Derek played it on here. And then episode 144, it sounded familiar again when your guest was talking about it. I'm like, I think I might as well just contact her and see if I can tell her my side of what happened.
That's so cool. I remember Orion bringing that up, but I just didn't. We just kind of went to the next thing, so I didn't really ask him more about it. So it was so cool that you got in contact with me. I appreciate that.
Yeah, no problem. I as soon as when he said it, I was listening to it at work and I got cold chills. I was like, oh me. God, that's mine.
It's me. Oh, you're at work and you heard that.
Yeah, I was like, oh
talking
God,
about my encounter. Mm-hmm.
That's my thing that I saw.
Well, gosh, but, I mean, you didn't have to email me and say, hey, that was me. So if you want to talk to me, that would be cool. So I appreciate that. Thank you so much.
No, absolutely. I was like, you know what? I'm gonna talk about it. I'm gonna get it out there. But oh my God, that episode was so interesting to listen to with all the different theories. It was like, holy crap, this guy.
Yeah, he
this
was
guy knows
good.
what he's talking about.
Yeah, he was good. And and once I learned how to say the word anthocyanidae properly, I felt a little better. But I literally was like, you're gonna say this first, and then I will say it because I will sound so silly. And it was okay after that. But yeah, no, it was a good episode. Orion he definitely did his homework, and even if some people kind of are, I don't know about the whole bear dog thing, but hey, I mean, things have happened, so why not? It could happen.
I mean, why not? People see, wolves running around on their hind feet all the time. So who knows? I mean, why isn't it possible?
Right.
It's the, of all the stuff that I believe in, the only one I still don't buy is lake monsters. Like in Vermont, we have, everybody comes here because Champ. And I'm like, Like right. I don't buy it. It's, But I mean, they've pulled whale skeletons out of. There's a town in up north of here. It's called Charlotte, where when that was all part of the ocean, they pulled a. I can't remember what kind of whale skeleton it was. It was one of the smaller ones, but it was they were digging up railroad tracks in the 1880s. I think they were laying tracks down, and some of the workers found it, and they're like, "What the hell is this? Like, this isn't like a cow skeleton or something." And they had some people coming to check it out, and it's still in a museum in Shelburne, which is about an hour north of where I am. But yeah, it's pretty cool.
I never heard of that. That is so cool.
Yep, and have you ever seen the show River Monsters?
Yes.
When he went to Loch Ness and they found that Greenland shark in there.
Yeah.
I was like, that's what it is. It has to be because it's the same kind of water, same kind of like history between the two bodies of water. I'm like, yeah, why not?
Yeah, and those things get really, really large. Aren't those the sharks that you can't eat them because they're poisonous? Like you have to like hang them, cure them, and they have to rot. And then you can something weird with the Greenland shark. I don't know. Yeah,
there is something weird with them. I don't know if that's it. It could be, but yeah, there's something weird with them, and they've got that weird like mottled like brown and black and green skin. Yeah, so
they're little
if
weirdos.
You saw it, you might think it was a dinosaur. But I'm like, I don't think there's a plesiosaur like farting around in our lake somewhere.
That would be amazing if it was, but I think that's why I haven't really done a lot of the lake monster stuff because that's kind of a stretch for me too.
And it's like
I'm heavy on the forested beings.
Yeah. And it's like every lake has a lake monster. We actually have 2 lakes in Vermont that both claim to have one, and they both look the same. And it's like,
Yeah.
they're not
How'd
there.
that happen? You know, Kevin, come on. You know, buddy, it's a tornado sucked one up. They were a pair, and it was just the one over here and the one over there, and somehow they are not able to mate, but they live forever. Okay.
Okay. I buy that then.
I mean, this is totally plausible. Just watch Twister. I mean, they got the cows flying. She's like, we got cows, you know. So why not suck up the plesiosaur and plop it in that lake over there? I mean, it's Vermont. Stranger things have happened, you know.
Fair enough.
Weather, man. We can blame everything on the weather.
The weather here is never right. You know, it's like that's the only job you can do every day and screw up and not lose your job for it is being a meteorologist.
Oh man, here too. Yeah, and somehow they still screw that up here, even though it's mostly like sunny and warm most every day. You know, they miss the 90% humidity every once in the other day we actually had 70% humidity and we thought we were all going to die. I'm like, this isn't Florida, you need to screw off with the humidity, okay? This is Nevada, stop it right now. So yeah, it was over 70% and we had a massive thunderstorm last night, which was amazing, of course, but yeah, they were saying, oh, it'll be kind of mid-level humidity. You're like, 70% is going to kill all the people in Nevada. Are you serious?
Yeah, right. And like last week here, we had a couple of days where with the heat index, it reached like 99, almost 100.
No.
And then it was like 65% humidity with it. It's like you go outside and it's like walking into a
swim.
wall.
You can swim in it.
And I work in a warehouse, and we have 3 doors that are wide open, and it's like working in an oven, and then there's no breeze.
God.
So you're just out there cooking. It's like, oh, I'm going to quit my job.
Yeah. The blow dryer is not enough of the airflow part of the blow dryer. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. You just feel like you're suffocating for 8 hours, right?
Yeah. Honestly, suffocating probably would have been better.
Oh my God. I know that feeling. Yeah. Oh, good Lord. Well, Kevin, thanks again. You're welcome on anytime. If you and your second Kevin or Seth or whatever, you guys want to come on, and maybe we could pick a true crime show or something and talk about.
That sounds great.
We could do a staircase episode if you guys want to watch that.
That'd be awesome.
Because I'm still on the fence. I have no freaking clue when I watch the whole thing. I honestly just don't know.
I could probably talk him into watching that to get ready for it.
Okay, that would be awesome. I would just
because I mean. Kevin, all of he's not really the biggest like true crime fan, but he watched the entire series of Mindhunter over the course of 2 days, and he's like, dude, you need to watch this. It's right up your alley. Sit down and watch it. And I'm like, I can't. I got to finish the first, and I got all this other stuff I got to watch, and then I'll get to it.
See, The Punisher, they did an incredible job.
It was so good. I didn't think I was gonna like Shane from The Walking Dead for Frank, but it was awesome.
I know, that's what I thought. I was like, oh, come on, that's Shane. He's gonna screw this up, but he did a really, really good job. Oh yeah, I cannot wait for the second season of it. And they didn't overdo it. There was nothing overdone or unbelievable. It was just man out for vengeance, and by God, he did it. So I think they did a fantastic job. Netflix is just kicking ass. That's all there is to it. Especially with their Marvel stuff, it's like all of it's good. I don't think they've done anything bad. Like, I don't like Daredevil, but I liked the Netflix version of it. Right. Like, holy crap, this is awesome. I mean, all these like Netflix originals, I'm like, before I would have just puked mouth and would rather have swallowed it than watched anything on Netflix because it was so bad there for a while. I mean, a long time. But now I'm kind of going, I might be able to someday just have cable. I mean, honestly. And, the one that I just watched about a week ago, I don't understand why it got such a bad rap, but I watched Bright. That was awesome. I think, you know what? It was so original that I don't really get why it got bad reviews because it was so different than anything else. And I think maybe that's what it was. People just didn't know what to do with it. Right. It's like, oh, this isn't the same thing I've seen 40 times. Right. You're like, oh no, let's go watch Jason Statham again in that same movie over and over. Can't stand him, obviously. But let's go watch Fast and Furious 62 or whichever one they're on now. Yeah, I think 62 is the next one up, right? I mean, it's numbing, but the stuff on Netflix is a little bit more mind-bending, which I love. I think they're doing a great job.
Absolutely.
All right, well, maybe that's a little homework. It just, whenever you guys get to it, maybe that we could make that kind of a nice little episode. We just get on and talk about the staircase and the different evidence that was brought up in there, because I still feel like I need to get that out of my system, because there's so much that's jumbled in my head and I still don't know what to make of it. So I'd love it if we could maybe do that one of these days. Absolutely. That'd be awesome. Cool. All right, Kevin. Well, I'll let you go. I know it's getting late there on the old Vermont coast thing. So no, I appreciate you having me on. Just to be able to get it out there and kind of tell my story. I really appreciate it. Thank you so much. You have a good rest of the evening. You too. All right. Bye.